welcome to Stream by Stream. This is episode 1, and it's awesome to have you, Hazel Savage. And for those who don't know Hazel, Hazel being the CEO and co-founder of Musiio. Musiio with a double I-O, correct?
Correct.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Hazel. I am awake, even though I've got my favorite I'm barely awake coffee mug, but I can absolutely assure you I'm awake for this.
I'm looking around for props, but the only thing I have here is this mug that says, "What? You have had nothing today? I could eat a horse now."
I think we're just starting something cool. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
Show us your mug before you start your meeting, right?
Show us your slogan mug.
It started here. It started in this first. It started right here, right?
Love it.
Look, we'll go with the flow. I've got a couple of questions. I've been really curious about the AI space. Obviously, you know, Tune Global, we're in the digital music tech space, and I'd love to understand where those two marry or handshake. So a couple of questions, and, you know, and before we do that though, I do know, and I've known you obviously for quite a few years now, Hazel. I know you've been part of the music industry ecosystem for many years, from labels, I believe, to services. I'd love a quick background on that, especially for the audience that's listening in.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Hazel Savage. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Musiio, which I started 2.5 years ago with my co-founder. But I've been in the music industry for a long time, for about 15 years. So my very, very first job was I used to work in a record store. That was while I was at university. I used to work my weekends in HMV. And I've also worked at other music companies and music tech companies such as Shazam, Pandora, Universal Music, and then maybe a bunch of other startups that people wouldn't know about. So yeah, I'm pretty consistently in the music tech space.
A very impressive range, by the way. So very, very impressed. So for those in the music industry that, you know, we hear about artificial intelligence quite a bit, Hazel, I'd love to know how that connects to the, let's say, the digital music world, and you know, where the benefits are and where you see the space at the moment. Especially, we hear AI a lot. I'd love you to kind of break it down for us a little.
Yeah, absolutely. So interestingly, you know, I always say at our best, I describe ourselves at Musiio as an artificial intelligence company for the music industry. But if you really, really want to boil it down, we're a data processing company. And it just so happens that the data that we process is audio and music data. And so what we mean by that is, you know, I often talk about how when I started at a record store, when I started at HMV 15 years ago, and I'm just old enough to remember that when new music used to come out, it was all released on a physical product on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. So if you wanted the latest song, you got to queue outside the store, and you know, there'd be maybe 2 to 5 new songs out on a weekly basis. And we've really gone from there in the last 15 years to like major streaming services saying, hey, we got 40,000 new songs a day being uploaded. And, you know, the young people I speak to today, the young people, they say, you know, they can't imagine a time when music wasn't just instantly available and then also instantly accessible. Like, why was all music released on a Monday? Like, that seems like a strange rule, because now you can have music released 24/7, any time zone, and it's globally available. So that's been a huge shift in the market. And really Musiio is a response to that shift. Now you have, you know, the same amount of music coming out in a day that used to come out in a year. How do you handle that kind of volume? How do you manage that level of data? So that's what we use artificial intelligence for. And as I say, AI is a buzzword, but really what we mean by that is using computers to mimic something that looks like human behavior. So if there are 40,000 songs that come out a day, and a human, if they have the time, would be able to tell you the genre of each song, but they would have to listen to the song to do it, maybe 1 or 2 times through. And, you know, that would be very tedious. To listen to 40,000 songs would take one human being 83 days, 24 hours a day, assuming each song was 3.5 minutes, which again is another rule that not everyone has to stick to these days. So really what we're doing is we're automating that process, training an AI to be able to identify these kind of characteristics without it having to be processed manually, because the volume makes that no longer achievable. So that's kind of how the company started and where we based ourselves, and the kind of challenges that we look at using this technology to improve the new ecosystem of the music industry.
Okay, that's good. So now let me see if I can join the two, if I'm correct or incorrect. So does that then mean from a user experience, let's relate it to a music streaming service or a project, and you have this high volume of music coming in, is that refining, is that then related to a more personalized experience for a user? Is there a link there, and what's that link? So you're cleaning up the data, you're giving very more accurate data. Is there a benefit there to the end user? Is it engagement? What is it exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously as a company, we're really B2B. We sell our services to other big music companies, but really the value, the end user is the one in the value chain that should benefit from the experience, which is, if I'm a streaming service and I have 40,000 new songs a day, if I don't know what any of them are, and I don't know what any genre any of them are, then I have no way to be able to playlist them or recommend them or allow users to search for them unless they know the exact name of the song or the artist. So really being able to either improve search experience or improve automated AI playlisting algorithms because you have the data to do so.
Is that tagging, Hazel? Would that be related to tagging as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. So tagging is one of our most popular products. So the ability to just tag data, metadata to audio files that doesn't come with it as standard, or that comes from various different places in various different qualities. The ability to sort of generalize and create consistent and accurate data means that the customer can create a better product. And one of the other things about music streaming these days is very different to like TV streaming. So I'm a subscriber to HBO Go, YouTube Premium, Netflix, and it's because they've all got different shows. Netflix, Amazon Prime as well. So there you go. I got 4 on the go. The idea that if you want a specific show, it's on a specific platform. But the difference with music is if you look at all the major streaming services in the world, if they have kind of that 40 to 50 million tracks, there's like 99% overlap on the content that people have. So then your unique offering, your sort of unique, gift to the customer is how well that content is curated and how good the experience of your product is.
I totally get it. Totally get it. Okay, so I can actually see where totally it benefits the whole ecosystem. So outside of streaming services, I know, and I had a look at your website, you've obviously tapped into companies in the gaming space like Aminotes. I think there's companies like I saw Epidemic Sound and Jamendo. Can you give us a little bit of an example? I'd love to hear about an example where you got involved with such companies and where the benefits were and what they were looking for as a brand and what kind of outputs, what the learnings are from there for anyone else listening in.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think Epidemic Sound is a really fascinating example because they have a more selective catalog than say a streaming service. I think their plan is to grow their entire catalog, but I think when we started working with them, it was around 30,000 tracks. And they actually do some level of manual tagging. So every track in their catalog, all 30,000, I think they had like assigned one genre, they had assigned one mood, and I think they'd assigned BPM. So each track, all 30,000, have those 3 pieces of data. But what that means is, say, I've tagged a song as rock. Someone has to specifically search for that word to get this in the results. Whereas somebody actually might mentally be thinking of this kind of sound, but they're using the word indie rock, or they're using the word hair metal, or they're using hard rock, alternate rock, classic rock. And so the more metadata you can attach to each track, the more likely you are to be speaking the language of the end user. And if it's just one genre per song, you don't give yourself the best hit rate. So the ability for us, Musiio adds up to 4 genres per track. Say Jamendo already have it tagged as rock, and then we tag it as rock, indie rock, alt rock, and then maybe even something like elements of funk. Maybe there's it's rock, but there's a funky bass line. So now you instantly have so many more search parameters that mean the user can find what they want. And Epidemic's main users are like videographers, YouTube creators, influencers. And when they're looking for music for their soundtracks, for the videos they're putting together, the ability to find what they want really quickly and to feel like the search system is intuitive. That's really important. So even though Epidemic had tagging, and even though their search system was already great, by augmenting it with more data, you open up the opportunity to a much wider audience. So that's one of the benefits of our technology.
Fantastic, Hazel. That's cool. And going on from this, obviously, Tune Global, we've talked about streaming services, production companies, the gaming sector. I think 2020 has been an interesting year, right? That's the word I'd use to describe it. But we're sort of seeing other industries trying to engage with music. We use the hashtag the power of music and how to enhance their own core offerings. We're seeing interest from the fitness space. We're seeing other verticals wanting to tap into music. Are you seeing the same from Musiio's side? And I think the benefit is not only, I would say, just music streaming service, right? But there is a whole gamut of industries that can tap into the music ecosystem, but also the AI piece, right?
Yeah, I mean, I almost don't want to go as far to say that music is a pandemic-proof industry, because certainly live music that's very much not the case. But when it comes to recorded music and streaming music, a lot of platforms have seen an increase in usage and a doubling down on this part of the business, because, like you say, if it's a fitness and it's people doing workouts from home, how do you provide that service in-app? How do you provide, an experience that replicates to many people versus the old school method of showing up to a fitness studio and there's one CD and it goes in the player? So it's about expanding the capabilities, and music is a huge part of that. It's definitely something that people have engaged with more highly during lockdown periods. And it's also something that the really sort of big industry players have also taken the opportunity to kind of double down on during the pandemic. When big companies see every disaster as an opportunity at enterprise level. So a lot of people have been kind of doubling down on, okay, great, we've got a year to really work and having the best product and creating the best experience for the user, because more users are now tuning in. So what does that look like? So 2020 has been a really interesting year from that perspective.
Fantastic. Yeah, great. I agree with you on that. And how, just generally, content owners, record labels, whether they're indies and majors, how do you find their kind of understanding around what you're doing, the value that Musiio brings, and the AI piece? I sometimes wonder if, even myself, it's easy to get, to freak people out with the tech language these days, right? That bridge of, record label, content owner to a music service, CD has changed dramatically in the tech space, right? Do you think most people get AI, especially related to music?
We've been going for 2.5 years, and I've definitely seen an improvement in the last 2.5 years in people's understanding and willingness to embrace new technology. But I still think there's quite a long way to go, and quite a lot of what we do is educational around deep technology. Because AI is still quite a scary concept. And I think I even had a sales call yesterday where I make very certain to explain, when I'm first speaking to customers, the difference between AI generated music, which we are not, and AI to generate insights. So my opinion of artificial intelligence is very much that it's excellent at doing very repetitive tasks that humans either are not good at because it's very tedious and boring, or don't want to do because it's very tedious and boring. A computer doesn't get bored, and it doesn't start to make systematic errors based on whether it's had its lunch or its 3 p.m. coffee. So AI can be an incredibly powerful tool. If the reality is that some of the record labels we work with have tens or hundreds of thousands of songs in their back catalogue that they're not making any revenue from because it's all untagged, it's all unsearchable, it's all unusable, then there's the opportunity. But to me, and I make this very clear, people since goodness knows when, you don't have to, kids want to learn guitar, people want to sing, people want to write music. No one gets paid for it. When I got my first guitar at 13, no one was paying me to learn how to play it. There was no immediate opportunity, but I did it because I wanted to do it. And so I don't think that creativity when it comes to writing music is something that needs to be replaced because there's no shortage of people that want to do it, and there's no shortage of amazing talent. And that's why I love AI when it comes to like a heavy lifting perspective. And I think AI for creativity is a very interesting academic proposition, but I think it's got limited use within the genuine creative industries. And that part is part of the education to me, because a lot of people, they see AI, they see music, they get on a call with me, they think I'm trying to take out all their jobs, and that's not what we're doing at all. So you've got to be, so I like to be very clear about this usually with our customers up front.
Yeah, and I've got to tell you, my ears pricked up when you said something that I think is really interesting, especially for a record label, the long tail, the catalog, the deep catalog. We hear a lot about, 80% of the music, being consumed is 20% of the repertoire. And it's like, well, imagine that split was more 50-50, right? And that obviously means revenue, right? So that's really interesting. So I guess going back to what I was saying about how the music industry or the labels see that bit, do they get it, and where the value, and it has a ripple effect, right? Because that piece tied into a music service and then delivering more back catalog, right? I think that's where I at least draw the line, say, hey, I absolutely get where AI fits into the piece.
Yeah, so. And there's a really fascinating example of a client that we have in South Africa, and the client that we have is actually a digitalization agency, but their customers are Universal Music Africa, Gallo Records, and essentially what they do is they take, and I've heard of this multiple times, where catalogs exist only either on CD or vinyl, and so someone will be brought in to physically take the actual item, say the vinyl, digitalize that into an MP3, and then they'll also use the Musiio product to attach the data from the start of the digitalization project. So there is still a lot of content and a lot of long tail catalog out there that is that early on in the stage. But what we do there is, it's tough enough that you have to, use a vinyl to MP3 encoder, and that has to be done manually. But then at least if we can add all the genres, the BPM, the data, the moods to the audio files as they're being generated, you certainly save a lot of time in the long run. So it's really everything from like, taking stuff that's only on vinyl right the way up to, the most advanced streaming services in the world who are looking for very cutting edge uses of data.
Perfect examples. Thanks, Hazel. And really last question, 2021, what excites you? Where do you think what's going to happen in 21?
I am hanging on the edge of my seat for a vaccination. And that is because the one
we can meet each other in Singapore again, right? Or somewhere face to face, right?
We can go out for a beer again, Spiro, which has obviously not been able to happen this year. But actually, and I sort of jest, but I'm kind of half joking, because one of the great things about the music industry is the networking events and the conferences that we have globally. And I think you and I have mentioned this before, Spiro, which is, say you and I were at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, which is usually around March. I don't think it's going to happen next year. But, you and I could be stood in the street talking, and someone I know from a label in China, or someone from, a publisher in the UK, walks past, sees one of us they know, they come over, they get introduced to the other person. And that's how the industry works. That's how networks grow. And it's very hard to create that kind of serendipity on a virtual call, because the only people that are getting invited are the people who were already invited. So that's the part of the travel and the global industry that I miss. But I'm also very happy to certainly dial back on the volume of travel that sometimes founders especially are expected to do. I could use about a 50% drop in the amount of flights. But I'm also excited for 2021 in terms of obviously growth. It'll be our sort of third year in operation, and we've got a lot of exciting stuff in the pipeline, a lot of exciting customers coming. So I'm just really excited to keep growing the business, and the music industry as a whole is still just going strength to strength. It's a huge growth area, and it's a lot of, I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of the big finance companies and VC companies are starting to take a lot of notice of audio as an investment category, and as a revenue driver for GDP. So I'm feeling very positive about the industry as a whole. So yeah, roll on 2021.
I feel the same way, and I totally agree with that sentiment. And lastly, where can anyone see you next? Are you appearing on a panel? Where can they hear more and find out more about what you're doing?
Well, I'm on 2 panels today, but I think this might be a little
This
bit.
is a good one though, right? This one you're really keen to get on, right?
Straight on. Didn't have to ask me twice, Spiro. And but depending on the edit, it might be a little bit late for people to jump on anything else I'm doing today. But so I think I have 2 or 3 scheduled for the month of December. December's a little bit quieter in the music industry. But what I always do is I always share my speaking events and calendar on the Musiio LinkedIn. And also we have a newsletter that we send out once a month that has all of our calendar of events and how you can trial our product. And anyone can sign up for that at musiio.com, which is musiio.com. So very happy for people to get in touch.
Fantastic. Well, Hazel, that's a wrap. So thank you very much for partaking in Stream by Stream, episode 1. Look forward to anything else you're doing in the future. Find all your stuff very educational. And I know you're very active on LinkedIn and you really put out some really good content. So thank you. And here's hoping 21 we meet somewhere on the ground.
Thanks, Spiro. We'll see you there.
Thank you. Thanks, Hazel.